Okay, let's see here. That's no good. All right, so we're trying this again, and we'll see how it does. Okay. Okay, let's see
It's
here.
working. Son of a bitch, it's
That's no
working.
good. All right, so we're trying this again, and we'll see. All right, I think we're good. I think we got it. Now turn your push to talk shit off. Assuming you can still hear me.
I can hear you. Why would I turn the push to talk off though?
Just because I don't like it. But that's just a personal opinion, man. Don't worry about that. Let's see. Okay, so as I try to fix things, we're gonna start all over with the dumb narrative here that we'll be trying out for a third time. For a third time. Sweet Jesus. That's crazy. Anyway, so for a third time, I am here again with the Sov. Sov's been kind enough to join me for yet another stream. And what we're going to be discussing today is the Wilfred, Wilfred Laurier University student teaching assistant Lindsay Shepard and her recording of her meeting with some university representatives um, after being called in for violating the school's gender and sexual violence policy by screening a few minutes of a Jordan Peterson debate that had occurred. Not so sure about the timeline on that. But anyway, apparently this triggered the university reps by the fact that she showed a Jordan Peterson debate. She gives some particulars on her approach to the debate, what she had hoped to spark as far as ideas within that debate. And Sav, up to the time I had mentioned this to him, had not heard the recording. And just for posterity's sake, even though you said this two previous times already, Sav, have you?
I have not seen the recording. I have not heard the recording.
So what you're trying to tell us here is that you have not heard a recording.
I have not. I've heard of the incident. I don't know what happened. I just want to clarify. I have not seen the recording.
You have not seen the recording. Okay.
Or heard.
Yeah, so basically he has not seen the recording. So we're going to get into that here in just a second. I've just got to get a couple of things shared and updated, and we'll be on our way. So far, nobody's come into the chat to tell me that it's not working, and so far as I can tell from testing, it seems to be working just fine. All right. For reals. Okay. And so hopefully the audio itself you'll be able to hear and will be just Jim Dandy. So let's give it a roll here.
By some of the students, maybe even threatening.
I don't see how someone would rationally think it was threatening. I could see how it might challenge their existing ideas, but for me, that's the spirit of the university, is challenging ideas that you already have. And I don't know who this came from. I would be interested to see the original complaint or complaints because, I don't really have any context, as to what exactly their problem was.
Sorry, can I? Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry. Were you trying to say something?
No?
Okay.
Can I just ask Lindsay to maybe just provide us with a full thing? Mm-hmm. Sorry, Nathan.
Yeah.
I just like to hear the whole, what took place. So if you just give us the whole story,
Yeah,
and then sorry, but I just feel that because I'm just sitting in and
If you would just let me know when you hear something you want to comment on by saying pause or using that safe word we talked about.
I'm just trying to get the context. Is she in a disciplinary meeting or something?
Basically.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so we have to teach about grammar, and in the Pearson book there was a section about pronouns and using like gendered language. So I wanted to make it more engaging. So what I did is we were talking about in papers using they as like a singular, and then we were also talking about like his and hers and like how to construct sentences with that. And then to contextualize it, I brought up like a YouTube debate. So a debate with both sides, Jordan Peterson's sides and this fellow named Nicholas Matt, who's also a prof at U of T.
Okay.
And they,
Do you have the name of the video?
it was from the agenda with Steve Paikin.
Okay.
It was like a YouTube debate. It was 1 hour long, but I showed about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then the students were very interested. I could tell that all of their eyes were on the screen. And after, when we had a debate, there were people of all opinions. And like from what I could see, it was a very friendly debate. Obviously, this person who had an issue did not express it to me. They just went straight to whoever. I don't really know what happened. So.
Okay. Just for some additional context, so you came from U of T.
No, I'm missing something there.
No.
It's a little bit low volume. Can you play that last 10 seconds?
Sure.
It was a very friendly debate. Obviously, this person who had an issue did not express it to me. They just went straight to whoever. I don't really know what happened. So.
Okay. Just for some.
So, yeah, so far they've had one person explain or approach her about something that she might not have liked in the context of everything, and that was it.
Basically, from what I've gathered so far, what they're saying is that some student didn't like what was being said and is comparing it to being threatened.
Well, that's the thing. They'll get into the complaints, but it sounds to me as though only one person actually approached her after the video was played. They haven't said whether or not that is the person that made the complaint yet.
Okay, so far so good.
Some additional context. So you came.
I don't know
from
if you can
UT,
get that a
right?
little louder because it's coming through your mic and it's a bit low.
Okay, well that's funny. I thought it was being done in my stereo mix, but that's okay. All right, hopefully that'll work.
No.
From
SFU.
From SFU. Okay, so you weren't like one of Jordan Peterson's students.
No.
Or anything like that. So just to give you some context about Jordan Peterson he is a figure that's basically highly involved with the alt-right.
Which they have zero proof of.
Oh my goodness, he's definitely not alt-right.
No, he's not. If you listen to anything he says, this man is not alt-right. Not that you can necessarily nail down a definition of the alt-right anyway, because there are just so many kind of people now. I guess you could say the quote-unquote white supremacist wing of the alt-right seems to get the most focus, but those aren't the only people involved in the alt-right.
Yeah, true enough.
I'm gonna go on.
Go on.
Okay, I'm going on.
Yes, the website Rebel Media, which is an alt-right website.
Okay, I'm calling bullshit right there.
Yep.
The Rebel Media is not an alt-right platform.
Nope. It is not. Oh my gosh. Is it a right-leaning platform? Yes. But alt-right? No. Because you know what? You ever listen to Mark Levin's program or even Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, I love Ben Shapiro.
Okay.
That's my favorite program.
All right. So based on, my listenings of the alt-right and some of the, disseminations of what they consider the alt-right to be, that is not what the alt-right is, because they believe that the alt-right actually has some communistic trappings, based on, how they want. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's basically because they have something of a collectivist mentality to them, kind of like SJWs do. So that Yeah, yeah, that's they try to a lot of people try to confuse the alt right with just the right, but if you're looking at what conservatism is, it's not what the alt right is. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's okay. People are weird.
No, definitely.
But go for. I mean, definitely the alt right had a lot of meanings. It's starting to narrow down now due to people like Richard Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's starting to become the alt right is more racist. But as it's been progressing that way, a lot of people are like, no, we're not into that, and they've kind of recoined themselves alt light. I don't know if you're aware of that term.
Yeah, even Lauren Southern did a stream recently that used it in the title. So, they consider themselves to be, I believe, non-establishment Republicans, but lean a little bit further conservative. Oh, thanks, Chagrin. I appreciate it. And of course, well, let's go a little bit further here before I decide to entertain those ideas. Let's see. Let's go ahead.
Been involved in raising multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for his research. It's he.
That doesn't make him an alt-righter. Okay, so let's say that we have, liberals or progressives that find some of Jordan Peterson's material worth donating to. Is that all of a sudden going to make him progressive to these assholes?
No, this is baiting. They're baiting her into something.
Yeah, not just baiting. They're muddying the waters. Of course, I don't know why they really need to, because these dumb shits don't even know they're being recorded. And I don't call them dumb shits for not knowing that.
They don't know they're being recorded. That's interesting.
No, they don't.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of like a disciplinary hearing with the record, being on the record, quote unquote.
No, if I understand it correctly, she snuck this recording device in there to record the meeting.
Well, good on her.
Yeah, definitely.
That's close enough. A week and a half ago, he gave a lecture in which he identified student protesters, by posting their social media accounts so that people would bully and threaten them online.
That's bullshit. He never did that.
Lectures about,
I've never seen him dox anybody. That's bullcrap too.
Yeah. They're basically, I think your terminology or your term is correct for it, that what they are doing is baiting her.
Right. They're trying to get her to say that she sides with Peterson or something.
Well, that, or they are trying to get her to see the error of her ways.
Critiquing feminism, critiquing trans rights.
I'm familiar. I follow him.
I'm not critiquing you. Okay, so
the thing is, can you shield people from those ideas? Am I supposed to comfort them and make sure that they are insulated away from this? Is that what the point of this is?
Boom!
Yeah, she got him good on that one.
Yeah, let's catch the reaction.
Because to me, that is so against what a university is about. So against it. I was not taking sides. I was presenting both arguments.
Okay. So the thing is about this is, if you're presenting something like this, you have to think about.
You didn't have enough trigger warnings. Sorry, I had to sneak that in there.
Climate that you're creating, and this is actually, these arguments are counter to the Canadian Human Rights Code. Ever since, and I know that you talked about C-16, ever since this passed, it is discriminatory to be targeting someone due to their gender identity or gender expression. So bringing something like that up in class, not critically.
Okay, so I was typing something in the chat here and got distracted. So let me back it up just a second here.
To be targeting someone due to their gender identity or gender expression.
So he's saying that Peterson targets somebody based on their gender or gender expression.
Correct.
Bullshit. If they're using that video of him that went viral a couple of years ago, at that protest, and he was cornered by that one regressive. He was like, well, I'm not changing my language just because you're concerned with how I identify with you. I don't know you. Something along those lines. If I perceive you to be a woman, then I may call you a she or her. So that's not targeting. That's like, look, it's perception of reality, for fuck's sakes. But to say that he's targeting is just utter bullshit.
So bringing something like that up in class, not critically, and I understand that you're trying to like...
It was critical.
What does he mean by not critically? Was it not part of a discussion? I'm confused now.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing.
Used it critically.
He's saying that...
So bringing something...
He's saying that she didn't use it critically. Well, I think
so she can only bring it up if it's critically?
I think what he means is that she didn't critique him. She didn't critique Peterson before playing this thing, and didn't critique him harshly enough to decide to not play this video, which again was a debate between he and another person. So, assuming she played both sides of the argument, I don't see what they're bitching about other than the fact that Jordan Peterson was involved.
Yeah, it seems that they really have no sort of logical basis for this. It's like a witch hunt.
Which is pretty much what, House Bill C-16 was all about. It was basically a legal witch hunt to make sure that people don't misgender other people. It's ridiculous.
Like that up in class, not critically, and I understand that you're trying to like...
It was critical.
No.
I introduced it critically.
How so? Like
I said, it was in the spirit of debate.
Okay, in the spirit of the debate is slightly different than being like, okay, this is like a problematic idea that we want to make.
We should have turned this into a drinking game. Every time you hear the word problematic, take a drink. Those few of you in the chat.
We would die of alcohol poisoning before this was over.
Well, what's funny is that Chagrin, if you remember her, Chagrin and Barrett, she's in the chat, and she's done a drunk stream, I think, since the my 1 year observance. Let me tell you something. She says she's an anger drunk. I think she's a fun drunk, but that would be interesting. I don't know. What do you think, Chagrin? Let's go ahead.
We want to unpack.
But that's taking sides.
Yes.
Like, it's taking sides for me to be like, oh, look at this guy. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is BS, but we're going to watch anyway.
Okay. So I understand the position that you're coming from and your positionality, but the reality
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't understand the position she's coming from. That's why she's in a disciplinary hearing.
If he did, she probably would not be there. My gosh.
It has created a toxic climate for some of the students.
God.
How many?
Here we go with the toxic environment. Did we call the hazmat team?
One?
Yeah, may I speak?
I have no concept of like how many people complained, like what their complaint was. You haven't showed me the complaint.
Yes,
and you can hear her starting to get emotional over this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically what this sounds like is he's winding it up to fire her, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what happened. Please don't spoil it for me.
I have heard something since, but nothing to that degree.
I understand that this is upsetting, but there's also confidentiality matters.
The number of people is confidential?
Yes.
That's bullshit. Yeah. But then again, we're talking about Canada. Now, granted, I can't really rest my argument on the fact that it's Canada, but this is a country that has hate speech laws first of all. I mean, the Bill C-16, in my opinion, is a hate speech law.
I would say that that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So there's that. But unfortunately, there's enough evidence to suggest that even in the United States, at the collegiate level, at many of the higher-ended universities, if you will, you are not necessarily allowed to face your accusers. And that's what they're doing to her here. The idea that to even have a number of complaints is confidential is bullshit. Unless it was just that one person who approached her after the class to complain to her about it. If there was only one complaint, then it should be pretty easy to figure out who it is. However, it wouldn't necessarily be true because one person could have approached her and a different person could have complained. I'm thinking the way they're trying to guard the numbers here doesn't really necessarily lead me to believe that the latter is the case.
Is one or multiple students who've come forward saying that
one student.
This is something that they were concerned about and that it made them uncomfortable. If this is, for example, a trans student, this is basically debating whether or not a trans student should have rights within one of their classes. And
bullshit!
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you play Jordan Peterson, trans people don't have rights. That's what he just said.
Yeah, and he's never said that. He's never said that they don't have rights. The closest you could even say, anybody could even come close to saying, is that he has said, I have a right to call you he, she, it, or whatever. That's called freedom of speech. You know, and you can feel however the fuck you want about it. He didn't necessarily say that part, but he doesn't agree that somebody's feels should trump freedom of speech, which is exactly what they've done.
And that is really acceptable in the context of the kind of learning environment that we're trying to create. It would be the equivalent of debating whether or not a student of color should have rights or should be allowed to be married. Do you see where how this is not something that's intellectually neutral, that is kind of up for debate? This is the chart.
Oh my gosh. Something left up to debate?
No, you can't leave anything important, up for debate, because having multiple ideas is bad.
Oh, sweet gosh.
Rights and
but it is up for debate.
But you're perfectly
welcome. She just made a mistake. She just showed her hand right there. She said it's up for debate. To that guy, it's not up for debate.
Yeah.
That's his truth.
Yep. And he's about to lay it on her too.
Opinions, but when you're bringing it into the context of the classroom, that can become problematic. And that can become something that creates an unsafe learning environment for students.
But when they leave the university, they're going to be exposed
she should ask
to these
him right
ideas.
there, what's unsafe about this? I'd like to know the physical damage that they're going to take.
But it's never they can't do that though. They have to talk about emotional damage.
Right, but emotional damage isn't covered under insurance. You know what I'm saying? There's no liability form for emotional damage.
It might be in Canada. Who knows?
So I don't see how I'm doing a disservice to the class by exposing them to ideas that are really out there. And I'm sorry I'm crying. I'm stressed out because this to me is so wrong. It's so wrong.
Can I mention the gendered violence, gendered and sexual violence policy?
Yeah, please.
So under that, gendered violence doesn't just include sexual violence, but it also includes targeting folks based on gender. So that includes transphobia, biphobia, homophobia. All those sorts of things are protected under the policy. And so those are things that Laurier has upheld as values, as well as the Ontario Human Rights Code. And so those are things that we're responsible for.
It scares me to know that there are cities anywhere in the Western world that have ordinances like this, human rights ordinances.
Oh, dude, they got tribunals. The ordinances are nothing.
Yeah, that's right. They do have the tribunals up there. It just worries me, man.
Or not impacting our students in that way, and not spreading transphobia in that way.
Okay, so what I have a problem with is I didn't target anybody. Who did I target?
Trans folks.
How? By telling them ideas that are really out there? By telling them that? By telling them? Really?
It's not just telling them in legitimizing this as a
I know his
valid
problem.
perspective.
Somebody might agree.
Yeah, that's what you're legit. The whole thing, legitimizing it.
No. It's like you're not just exposing them. You're saying that that's a valid view somehow.
I know how.
Yeah, his problem is that somebody in that classroom might watch that and agree with it.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Oh no, can't have that. Man, this is.
This is like drumhead style fucking persecution here.
Yeah.
Perspective
In a
on
university,
these issues.
all perspectives are valid.
That's not necessarily true, Lindsay.
It is true. For fuck's sakes, because look, if you have a Nazi come speak at your university, you know, is there a chance that somebody might take what he has to say to heart? Sure. There's a chance. However small. But you don't just let only the Nazis have their say. You have other people who would counter-argue the Nazis'
Right.
propaganda with counter ideas, ways to say, no, this is where they're wrong, and to stand by those ideas, to validate them, not just by personal opinion or even anecdotal, but with hard evidence to show why these ideas are bad. Okay, because like it or not, a Nazi, if a Nazi wants his ideas out there bad enough, he'll find a way to get them out there. The only difference being is that there might not be somebody else's voice to try to disinfect those ideas from somebody who may have heard those ideas and might be open to those ideas being correct. You know, so that's why in a university, it's important to let all ideas, regardless of how bad they are, to have their time in the sun. You know, you shutting them down is just going to make people even more curious about it. We have enough social history to show that to be true. You know, you make alcohol illegal by creating a constitutional amendment, and oh my God, alcohol sales, although black marketed, go through the damn roof. You know, and these people care more about having feelings protected than just actually showing kids, hey, look, these are the things that are out there.
Yeah, it truly is fucked up. To me, if this was me, I'd be like, these guys are about to fire me, and they're looking for any excuse to do so.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that's being debated in current society, and I don't feel the need to shield people from what's going on in society. Like,
Okay.
to imagine that this is happening in university, it's just bad.
Okay, so
Bad.
But see, here's the only problem I have with what she just said. If she is a TA in a university, she's either there as a graduate assistant or an upperclassman. And for her to have not known...
Wait a second. If she's the TA, that means she has a professor that like approves all these lesson plans and shit like that. Why are they not in that room?
That's a good idea. Or maybe there is a possibility that the professor didn't know about it. I think they touch on that later on.
just to give you context, also within all of this that is happening, Laurier's being blanketed with white supremacist posters currently. There's another debate in society, which is whether or not North America should be a set of white nationalist states and that it should be ethnically cleansed of other people. That is also a current debate.
Nobody's saying to ethnically cleanse anything. That's total bullshit. Even fucking Richard Spencer saying let's pay people to leave.
Even Jared Taylor, if you're familiar with him, has never said anything of the like. And, I don't know if it's the best argument, but he has a fairly decent argument as to why he's not a white supremacist. If you've never listened to that guy, you should give him a listen to. If, not to be convinced, just to kind of see where he's coming from.
Would you show something in your tutorial that you had, white supremacists and non-white supremacists debating whether or not other people should live in North America?
But Jordan Peterson is not a white supremacist.
No, he's not, but he just keeps repeating that over and over and over again.
No shit.
Is that something that you would show?
If that was related to the content of the week and we were talking about right-wing speech bubbles, maybe.
Okay.
It depends on the content. If there's really ideas that are existing out there like that, then, look, the thing is, I don't see what's transphobic about showing a video of Jordan Peterson. He's a real person. He's out there.
He is a real person, but he is a real person who has engaged in targeted behavior that, or targeting of trans students in a particular, like basically doxing them, if you know the term, like giving out their personal information so that they will be attacked.
No, he hasn't. Damn it. If that had been me, I'm like, can you show me any evidence of this? Or am I supposed to take your word for it?
Yeah, the agenda's clear at this point. She should call Fire. I don't know if you've heard of them or not.
No, I have not.
They do. Oh, actually, they're a legal defense team for free speech on campus, but I just forgot this is Canada. Damn Canadians.
Well, hopefully maybe they'll make some inroads there soon.
So that death threats will find them. This is something that he has done to his own students. He has done to other students. And this is also something that the students are aware of. So this is basically like playing, not to kind of do the thing where everything is kind of compared to Hitler, but this is like neutrally playing a speech by Hitler.
We're not going to compare everything to Hitler, but we're going to compare him to Hitler.
So in the chat is Jesse Teller. I believe that's Jesse James over in Pal Talk. He was in the room with us. He says nobody is having this argument and they're fucking destroying this girl. They're abusing her emotionally, mentally. This is like a cop interrogation tactic.
It seems like it. They're just kind of wearing her down.
Yeah. They're trying to club her over the head. Okay, give me about 30 seconds. I will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief break.
Okay, I'm returning. I have returned. When you've had about a liter of soda, at some point you have to get rid of it.
Pee break.
Exactly. All right. Do you have anything you want to add before we continue?
No, please continue.
Okay.
From Gamergate. This is the kind of thing that departmentally, in terms of like critical communication studies and in terms of the course of what we're trying to do, is diametrically opposed.
Oh, 1 second. So, yeah, what we got is that she did this based on the content of the lesson for that week. So, I would.
See, it wasn't, so she didn't arbitrarily just decide, hey, I'm going to show him some David Peterson or Jordan Peterson shit. She just like, okay, this is relevant to what's being taught.
That's what it sounds like to me.
To everything that we've been talking about in the lectures.
About.
Was this one of the reasons that you wanted to do this? Because it was like a reaction to the lecture content?
No, we were talking about gendered language, and I was asking them to structure sentences using they or using his or her. And then we talked about the societal context of it.
Okay.
So I don't get why I'm being seen as transphobic by virtue, by proxy of me just saying, just stating, just exposing people to an idea. I don't get how that label is not attached to me. I really don't.
It's more about the effect rather than the intention. If that, like, obviously that wasn't your intention, but nevertheless,
you're a transphobe. Fuck intention.
Yup.
F your intention.
It disturbed and upset students enough.
So everything's about those students who are disturbed. Everything is catered to them.
Yeah, didn't you get the memo?
Wow.
Can I just
please,
offer a
Robert.
different perspective? Was this a tutorial based on looking at grammar?
Mm-hmm.
And it was focused on the use of pronouns and the use of grammar.
Mm-hmm.
Is grammar not something that's not really subject to debate?
The they and the his or her, it's a huge debate right now. Can we use they in the singular?
Yeah, but you do know that they has actually been used in the singular.
Yeah, that was in the
grammatically.
video I showed to the class. And
They
that's
are
the point I
literally
made. And
arguing
the thing is, like,
semantics right now. That's what's happening. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't believe they have anything to argue with.
kind of funny is I disagree with Jordan Peterson. I disagree. But you guys
not just
think
semantics, pedantic semantics.
Say that 5 times fast. No, really, go ahead.
I'll pass.
Okay.
Like pro Jordan Peterson or something. It's pretty fun.
Well, from the
Do you mind if I? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm here for a different, like, just as the MA CAS coordinator. My issue with Jordan Peterson, I'm going to come at it from a different angle, is that as an academic and scholar in this institution, or any institution in which my research in that is subject to peer review, right? And you know what peer review is, right? So regardless of what I believe, if I'm to be published in scholarly journals and that, it has to be
Hey, Sovereign, are you just listening or are you actually watching the screen?
I'm listening. I'm not tuned into the actual stream.
Somebody actually said something that you had said. Let's not compare to Hitler, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this lady is so damn frustrating to listen to. Every fact that comes, I don't know who they're talking about other than the student.
research has to be demonstrated to be able to be reproduced in the methods and theories that are used to reproduce it. I might believe X, but my academic freedom, as I understand it, does not just give me the freedom to spout off. If I'm tenured and they can't fire me, I mean, there was a case of Charles Murray. He used to do this about race at Western, wasn't it Western? Yeah. And he...
I like how he's very
published
subtly
stuff by
threatening her with tenure stuff. You know what I mean? Like, why even mention that? Why is that relevant?
Well, I think they're just trying to make the argument that when you're a tenured professor, you can pretty much get away with saying most anything.
Right, but like the implication there is that you can't do this.
Yeah, I get it.
Publishing companies that didn't do peer review because they wanted what he had. So what he was actually teaching his students were ideas that were not substantiated by methods and theories that could be reproduced in a academic, analytical way that other people could reproduce and get the same results. He had already predetermined the outcome. It's much the way a lot of these right-wing think tanks like the Fraser Institute, that their form of research can't be done in traditional academic journals because they've already predetermined the outcome. For myself, regardless of what I believe, I won't teach anything in any of my classes if it is not something that is substantiated by evidence that can be reproduced according to peer review. I might tell students, I believe X. I have no expectations that they will reproduce anything that I think, because I don't expect them to. But I say, I believe X because of what I've read. But for me, as I teach the students in the second year comm studies theory courses, opinion minus evidence, I know it's a bit simplistic, opinion minus evidence equals prejudice. In the case of Jordan Peterson, and I'm not super well versed, but I have done reading and looking at none of his contentions about the Human Rights Code, the fact that people can be jailed for, you've probably, if you follow him, you would know that he claims you could be jailed when Bill C-16 was being discussed. He was claiming that you could be jailed if you misgendered, like you used the wrong pronoun for someone.
Yet, he wasn't the only one that made that argument. Theron Meyer also made that argument. And
yeah, but the whole basis of what he's saying is because C-16 was passed, this is beyond discussion, is basically what he's saying.
Yep.
It's bullshit.
Pretty much.
What struck me is that none of what he proclaims, and sometimes the way he proclaims it, I think he tries to defend him or act like he doesn't yet know, is done in ways which are academically suspect, to say the least. Like, there is nothing, from what I've read and researched, and which is, again, like I would say, I'm not as extensive on researching him, he does not have the substantial academic evidence to be a credible person. It's like some of the climate change deniers that are given a 50-50 chance with meteorologists.
Right. A Dr. Jordan Peterson does not have the credentials necessary to... Oh my God.
What's funny about that, about you saying that, Sovereign, is that, that argument gets made a lot in the chat forums. Well, are you an expert in climatology? No. Well, then what do you know about it? Well, I'm a fairly well-read person. I know how to disseminate information that's given to me. And the information that I have disseminated shows that anthropogenic climate change is not a real thing. So this idea that somehow you must have earned a degree in climatology before you can disseminate information about climate change is ridiculous. And it's ridiculous to even bring up, climate deniers.
But in this case, we actually have somebody who's not only speaking about it, but actually does have a PhD. At least I think he's got a PhD, right? He's a doctor?
No, there's nothing known about these professors that I've
been really?
aware of yet. Yeah, they are just university reps.
Oh, I don't mean these guys. I'm talking about Jordan Peterson. He's basically saying Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah,
his views are not valid.
Yeah,
right. And it's like, but he actually is a doctor.
Yeah, he's got a PhD. I think his PhD is in psychology.
All the better because this whole situation actually refers back to a psychological illness, right?
Yep.
Trans people have what's called gender dysphoria.
Yep. And if anybody understands gender dysphoria, that man does. But again, it comes back to the matter that Jordan Peterson has read research. He has done research. He knows how to disseminate data. He knows how to disseminate data, not just his own, but data from other people. So even he could have an opinion on climate change, for fuck's sakes. But again, I don't understand why they would even bring up climate change and try to use that as some kind of argument here. It's a bad comparison to begin with.
Scientists never proclaim 100%, right? Because the scientific method cannot.
Bullshit. He just talked about a subject where people will always argue that there is a scientific consensus. You can't argue the scientific consensus.
There's no scientific anything when it comes to these social issues.
Jesus Christ.
Not demonstrate, no scientist says this is 100% certain.
I'm sure there are scientists who say this is 100% certain. To say that there aren't would deny that anybody ever has ego.
Right? Because that's the nature of scientific inquiry, just like social scientific inquiry. In the same way.
Oh, but social science isn't a hard science, you motherfucker. Ugh. Sorry. He just made a comparison between science and social science. Difference being that one is a hard science, the other isn't. Jesus Christ. I mean, I understand they can use the scientific method in social science, but their predictors are just so all over the place. I mean, like, basically what I'm saying is that when you think you have something nailed down, people do something to prove you wrong. To say that a fire will burn in an oxygen-enriched environment, that's not a variable. It will happen. The only variable will be how big will the fire will be, depending on how rich the environment is in oxygen.
Way, though, meteorologists do not teach in first-year geology or meteorological classes that there's a debate, even if in the public sphere there are people that want to believe, and it's a very high number, higher in Alberta than perhaps Ontario, higher in certain parts of the United States, like Texas, who believe that, fossil fuels do not contribute to global warming. But that is not a credible academic, scholarly, scientific position. And I think to present as if there's two sides to a debate when it's substantially, there is not an academic credible, that becomes problematic. And I'm approaching this from the point of view of the institution.
They're kind of doing this soft infantilization of her. It's disgusting.
We are legitimizing positions that don't have credible evidence, just like Charles Murray with his race claims of white superiority. When you're doing that, never mind the fact that there's also the issue of the fact that a certain grouping of students will be subject to having their rights subject to what the majority thinks without. So just purely from the matter of it, and what I'm doing is just operating from a different position here in saying that as a scholar, as someone with tutorial leaders, I would find it problematic if my tutorial leaders were representing positions that didn't have any substantial academic credibility to that evidence.
You're right, Soph. I'm really glad I actually did not turn this into a legit drinking game.
But if he's still a public figure, yes, he has an academic credential, but this was on a TV show. He's still a public figure.
He's a public figure, and there's a lot of people there, like Richard Spencer, leader of. I don't like calling them alt-right. It gives them too much legitimacy. But Richard Spencer, right? The Nazis actually used. This is a historical.
They're straight up going to the Nazis again.
Idea in the 1920s in Weimar, Germany, as an issue around which is what they're using now. We know, though, that someone like Richard Spencer is using theories and ideas which don't have any academic credibility. He's a public figure. But in terms of if we introduce someone, we give them greater credibility in a certain condition. Yes, I agree that there are public figures out there that bring people, bring hatred, that target groups. And if you look at, you can look at statistically, the degree of suicide attempts as trans people, young people, it's the highest of any group in society, and you go through Indigenous people, right, and so on. There are things.
I wonder how many.
When he says Indigenous, he means like North American Indians, right?
Yeah, he means Inuit.
Jordan Peterson has never said a damn thing about the North American Indians.
Well, Okay, well, you see the different how many different people that are part of the oppression bracket they're going through right now.
That's the thing. They're literally going through the entire progressive stack, trying to beat her over the head with it. This is your fault. You are perpetuating this. This is disgusting.
It is, and but the problem that they have though with doing that is that they're not legitimizing their own arguments by doing it. You know, they're compounding all these oppressed people, not just to beat her over the head, but to try to legitimize their argument, which they can't do. There is nothing legitimate about what they're saying to her.
Things that don't have academic credibility, and I just don't think, I personally think, I have some problems. I have no problems with
I think I have some problems.
The fact that these things are out there and people are going to engage them, but we have to think of the atmosphere we also create for the learning process, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, I mean, anyways, that's...
To go back to your question before, is it just for those people who were upset about this or felt like threatened by this? There's something called the tyranny of the majority. It's that if you want to create an environment that has the ability for everybody to learn, that's not going to block people out just because they are like the minority within a particular group, or they might not feel comfortable like voicing that they have like problems with that material in that space because you're an authority figure in that space. You're also a representative of the class and the department and the school in that space. And this is why it becomes, like, do you understand how it could become an issue? Like, I understand why you made the choice. Like, that you wanted to kind of present this.
Again, if you understand why she made the choice, why is she having this freaking meeting with you numbnuts? And
yeah, they're literally having a disciplinary hearing for unintended consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and you probably forgotten this, Sovereign, but the other night I asked you if you listened to this.
And I said no, yeah.
One thing you should notice about the men in this hearing. Have you noticed?
That they're all girly?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not presenting that as an argument.
Oh, no, it's painfully apparent. I mean, these guys are as Annie as you can come.
Jeez, they're probably checking their calendars to see when Cher is going on tour again. Oh, man, I should not have said that.
This is an issue, and to talk about and to bring it out there, etc. It's more about trying to understand what the impact of that choice was and why it might not have been the best choice for this context.
I mean, I can see why people would think that.
But
I wouldn't do it again. Maybe not this exact case.
But you would do something similar again. Like, just that's your principles, that you feel like it would have to be like a completely balanced view. Like,
no, I don't believe in like a false notion of balance, but I just...
She literally used to
like,
stand up and say, I did nothing wrong. You guys are making shit up at this point.
But she won't. I don't think she's going to do that.
Like, I'll say it again, like, the university is about exposing people to ideas, and I just don't get why you have to think a certain way, or that...
That's not a bad attempt.
Because from what...
That might be as close as she gets. We'll see.
What I'm getting in this room is if you don't think a certain way, it's not credible. And not about the academic credibility stuff, but from a public figure point of view. And the thing is, like...
Catch that? She called them out on what we've been saying. Basically, she's saying if the opinion doesn't agree with you, then it's not credible. Is what she's telling them.
Essentially, yeah.
Like I said, I disagree with what he says, but I'm still open to listening to people. I'm open. And these students were not open. They're not open to learning new things.
Okay, so...
Hearing other perspectives.
So that the students... Your position is that the students were wrong.
I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm saying they
Not
were
open to-
they were not open to a new perspective, and I find that unfortunate.
And I can tell you who we can blame from that, or for that the students aren't open to other ideas. Two of them are the assholes in the room with her.
Okay.
Yep.
Like, part of university is personal development, and that means becoming like a stronger person and challenging your beliefs and stuff. So
Okay.
She got him there.
Do you understand how what happened was contrary to? Sorry, Adrian, what was the policy? The
Gendered and sexual violence.
gendered and sexual violence policy. Like, do you understand how?
But sorry, what did I violate in that policy?
So, gender-based violence.
You violated nothing. That's the point.
Causing harm to trans students by framing their identity as invalid or their pronouns as invalid.
No, she didn't. She did not. Now, the Jordan Peterson debate might have, but again, I have no reason to believe that she did not present the counter argument from his rhetorical opponent. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is making me angry.
Yeah.
Or something up for
Potentially
debate.
invalid.
So I caused harm.
Oh, potentially invalid. Okay.
Which is
Violence.
under the Ontario Human Rights Code a protected thing, and also something that Laurier holds as a value.
Okay. So, by proxy of me showing a YouTube video, I'm transphobic and I caused harm and violence. So be it. I can't do anything.
By proxy, you are transphobic. You're not actually transphobic, but because you played a thing, you're transphobic. That makes perfect sense. I read the Bible once. By proxy, I'm a Christian. I mean, I actually am a Christian, but I'm saying, it's that kind of a thing.
I once ate collard greens, so by proxy, I am now black.
Southerner. You're a black Southerner.
Man, double whammy, shit. Man, I gain and lose on the progressive stack with that one.
Anything to control that.
Okay, so that's not something that you have.
Back it up.
Okay, so that's not.
And I caused harm and violence. So be it. I can't do anything to control that.
Okay, so that's not something that you have an issue with. The fact that happened, like.
I mean,
Are you sorry
I
that it
know
happened?
I know in my heart, and I know I expressed to the class that I'm not transphobic. And if any of them, I don't know what they said, but I don't think I gave away any kind of political position of mine. I remained very neutral. And
That's kind of the problem, is that if you're framing something that is
Shit.
like just
Remaining
to
neutral is kind of the problem.
Really?
Did you not hear him just say that? She's like, I prefer to remain neutral. And he goes, well, that's kind of the problem.
said,
Let me go
but
back because I was looking at the comments here, and somebody had put the link for the school's policy, and I was trying to see if I could get to it through the comments. Oh crap! Because I think that would actually be interesting to see if we could get the policy and look at it. But I'm not really sure how to do that. I may continue to play with this. Let me go forward.
I don't think I gave away any kind of political position of mine. I remained very neutral. And
that's kind of the problem, is that if you're framing something that is like this, like just to give you the example of
you heard it right there, right?
Lecture, I also showed something that was from like a member of the alt-right. Were you there for the when I played the Guns Unlimited video talking about
Yeah.
the 3D printing, etc.? So this is someone who also has like a site like the ones that fund Jordan Peterson, like Patreon, like the bucket of the alt-right white supremacist website that basically that gets funding for these projects if they get kicked off of things like Indiegogo, etc. But I framed it by saying those kinds of things, by actually bringing out the critical perspective to just present information like this neutrally, it can help cultivate an environment where these kinds of opinions, like alt-right opinions, white supremacist opinions, anti-trans opinions, anti-gay opinions, anti-women misogynist opinions, where those can feel like it's a space where those kinds of opinions can be nurtured and created.
Okay, am I understanding it? Because again, I'm being distracted with trying to do something else here. Am I understanding that basically what he's saying is that because she remained neutral, that it didn't create a safe space, that in fact what
Yes.
she needed to do was basically say, well, I'm against everything that Jordan Peterson says.
From what I'm understanding, the fact that she didn't preface the video with everything this man is saying is wrong, that's the problem.
I wish I knew this dude's name so I could tell him to go fuck himself.
And that's the kind of the frame on why some kinds of content we would use in class and some we wouldn't use, or we would only use those for upper year classes or grad students. Like, for example, in one of your classes, it might be appropriate to watch a white supremacist like recruitment video, something that Richard Spencer has done, because there's students with more critical faculties that have been exposed to more things, that have had more time to
He's literally saying the students are too stupid to understand this content.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
He's saying that some students can handle it, but other ones are just too childish. That's what I'm hearing.
Because they haven't exposed themselves to enough of what we believe in.
Young students. And something of that nature.
You know, I absolutely believe that there are a lot of young people about this girl's age who cannot disseminate information given to them appropriately. They can't discern the valid arguments from the invalid arguments. They don't have a grasp on logical fallacies or what makes a good rhetorical argument. I also understand that there are students who can do all of that. And what they're basically doing, again, is saying that she is not one of those kids that can, that can think for themselves, basically. And what she's shown them is that she can. They just don't like the way she's thinking.
Is not appropriate to that age of student because they don't
18?
have... Yes.
They're adults.
Oh, shit.
I might have gotten my argument wrong. Go ahead.
No, she basically laid it on him.
Yeah. But I guess where I thought I misjudged where he was going. He's not saying that she can't, although that's probably what he thinks. He's saying that the kids that she's teaching can't discern that information. They're not mature.
Right.
Enough. Okay. Well, if they're not mature enough, how about you let the chick do her shit and try to get them mentally mature? Instead of, making these, instead of doing this safe space shit that these people want her to do.
Yes, but they're very young adults. They don't have
they're very young.
The critical...
I love that argument.
...toolkit to be...
They don't have the critical toolkit. You fucking kidding me? He doesn't know what toolkits they have.
Apparently, at some point in your life, someone was supposed to hand you a toolkit of some kind.
Jesus.
It's not like, you can think for yourself or anything. Somebody has to give it to you.
That is fucking ridiculous.
That reminds me, like when I was going to college, they used to have this class called critical thinking, where they literally taught you how to think a certain way. Yeah. And I didn't like it. So I was very critical of critical thinking. And I shit you not, there was a test in the critical thinking class. And I thought this was like a trick question, where one of the answers was, C, none of the above, D, all of the above. And I thought to myself, this is a critical thinking class. Since all of the above includes none of the above, that can't be right.
Oh, shit.
Guess what?
What?
I was wrong. Apparently, the stupid ass teacher thought somehow magically that all of the above, which includes none of the above, it was the proper answer. So I'm not very let's just say I'm not very impressed with academia.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been a quandary for me at times because, I've had at least one professor who had tried just a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit to make her class her history class a political platform. Yeah, I just didn't dig it, not in the least.
Yep.
Be able to take it apart yet. This is one of the things that we're teaching them, and so this is why it becomes something that has to be done with a bit more care.
I get what you mean about framing it. Like I remember when you talked about the 3D printing of the guns and how you said it was problematic, and like in retrospect, yeah, I should have used that word, problematic. That would have been a good word to frame it.
Well, it's good that you acknowledge that, especially since you're saying that, this is not something that you agree with. This is not something that you're trying to promote. It's just that you're trying to open up the debate. But the problem is that that particular debate is about whether trans people are people or not. Does that make sense?
It's a language issue, and you can extend it to whether you want to extend it to personhood or not. And I did present that argument. I did present the argument that by denying people their pronouns, you are denying their dignity. Mm-hmm. I stated that argument.
Okay. But do you understand if you were a trans person in that class, or if the topic was, if women
you understand that you might have hurt somebody's feelings.
Oh, your sound cut out right there.
Oh, I said, you understand that you may have hurt somebody's feelings. Therefore, the whole class can't learn this. I'm sorry.
That's about what it amounts to. Let's see.
The vote. Do you think that you might find that problematic? Do you think that might not be
problematic?
Something that was just kind of academically related to your identity and rights, but something that was fundamentally related to your identity and rights?
Sorry, what's the question again?
That if you were a trans person in that class, do you think that might not have just been like an academic question that was something that was up for debate, but rather that was something that you immediately felt impacted you and made the learning institution that you are paying to attend a place where you're feeling that your identity is being questioned and up for debate?
Would I feel that way if I was a trans person? I mean, it's kind of hard for me to say because it kind of ties into who people are as individuals and how strong they are and how willing they are to engage with ideas.
Okay, so
I don't know if I can make any generalization about.
Is your position that these students were not strong enough to be able to withstand this kind of critique?
Obviously not. I mean, I don't know if it can be any more obvious than that, because if that were true, would there have been any complaints?
Right, true enough.
And the thing is, I'm still a little skeptical as to the number of complaints, and now as to whether or not there were any complaints at all.
Well, there had to be at least one, right? Otherwise, how did the university staff find out?
Well, they could have, however they found out doesn't necessarily mean they found out through complaint.
I mean, yeah, that might not be a complaint solidly, but at some point someone went to someone else and said, hey, could you believe the shit that just played in this class? It's Jordan Peterson.
That's a possibility, but I'd be more likely to believe that the complainants are in the room with her.
I mean, I'm not saying for sure there was a complaint, but it's plausible.
Yeah, no, it's plausible. I'm just highly skeptical of it.
I mean, if someone was attacking women in front of me, which it does happen, I feel strong enough in my position to be able to either not respond and just know in my head, yeah, that person is wrong. I'm fine with being a female.
Okay.
But I don't know how other people might react. Like, I don't live in their head. It's hard for me to know.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
How dare she not be?
One of the things. I mean, again, what I see is I have not a problem with the idea of debate at any point. What concerns
I don't have a problem with debate at any point except for that point.
Me with what I know of, having been here now 16 years, and I don't know, the first years have changed in me. This is a first year class, right?
Yeah.
CS 101. But what I have found is that one of the things is a notion of confirmation bias. You've heard that phrase? Mm-hmm. Because you did a comp studies at SFU. But one of the things is that a lot of the students that are coming in already hold very strong opinions, whether or not these are opinions backed up with evidence. And my concern, I'm just adopting the position of the scholar in the situation here, is to say, well, we have these students that come in, they have very strong, in my experience, they've always have, and I'm teaching them in second year even, they have very strong opinions about X, Y, and Z, which is, that's fine. But if they're going to be challenged about those opinions, it's a much greater deal to do that. It's the world that Jordan Peterson, Ezra Levant, Rebel Media, and that have constructed, I find quite...
Go back to Rebel Media again?
Yep. Why not? You gotta take your pokes at them whenever you can.
That Jordan Peterson, Ezra Levant, Rebel Media, and that have constructed, I find quite quite amusing in a way, or bemusing.
Well, guess what, buddy? Not everybody gives a fuck about what you think about those things or those people. Jesus. What he thinks about them is, I guess, is supposed to be the moral arbiter as far as whether or not Jordan Peterson should even be played in a college classroom.
Because it's almost like the left has won and controls everything, and you're going to be imprisoned if you don't adopt cultural Marxism, politically correct, the new term cultural Marxism.
In Canada, that's true. The left pretty much has won up there. It's been that way for decades.
I mean, I find it practically ludicrous that this is the case.
Which is kind of insane.
Yes. I mean, okay. Okay, I'm not going to mention her by name. But, we have those Canadian, at least a couple of Canadian people that come into the chat room. One of them in particular first says there's no such thing as hate speech laws in Canada. And then when she's shown that there are hate speech laws in Canada, is then happy to have hate speech laws in Canada. Admits to she likes the idea of Canada being able to stifle impolite speech because it might hurt some fifis.
Well, you have to realize that for a great percentage of the population, whatever the government does is right, whether it's for their benefit or not. And you know the group I'm talking about.
Yep.
Political economic realities of Canada, Ontario, Kitchener-Waterloo, this institution, precarious work, etc. So I just find it ludicrous that people like Ezra Levant and Jordan Peterson believe that. I mean, maybe they believe in those black helicopters that the conspiracy theorists in the States used to talk about coming to control.
Okay, yeah. Let me compare these guys, especially Peterson, to black helicopter conspiracy theorists. In hopes that alone will delegitimize anything that the man ever has to say.
World government.
There seems to be an awful lot of, I believe the correct term is gaslighting here.
That may be right. Let's have an educational moment with the live stream and look up the word gaslighting.
At least I believe that's the correct word. Yeah, I wasn't born in this country.
Manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. Yeah, they may be gaslighting this girl.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't use it incorrectly.
I don't know that you knew the context in which you
No, I know gaslighting in a way meant to try to convince somebody they're wrong even when they're right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, and if that's the case, I'd say you're spot on.
That, to me, is where a lot of that sort of thinking goes. I do know that there's people that bring in those ideas in the classes I teach. I don't feel that I'm doing my duty to challenge these already established ideas if what I present in the courses I teach, and also in terms of the curriculum that communication studies as a field, as an interdiscipline of many disciplines, I don't feel I'm teaching critical engagement in a world where all the established dominant institutions of society reinforce a number of different types of privileges, perspectives, and prejudices, where the university is one of the few spaces where we can actually take people, engage them, challenge them. It's not, challenging the faith-based or family and other types of structures in society that they've been inculcated with for years and years in 3 hours or 1 hour or 50 minutes, in some ways isn't going to be much of a challenge. But if in an institution which prides itself on getting to grips and having peer-reviewed, academically, socially, scientifically, evidence-based research is going to work to confirm the kind of biases that are based on stuff that it cannot be substantiated in an academic, credible way, I find that problematic.
I know you got an opinion on that one.
Basically, at this point, all I hear from him is like wah 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 wah, because it's basically he's just, like I said, he's trying to gaslight her. He's trying to convince her that she's wrong, and I think, and I suspect, he's trying to get her to say that, but she keeps resisting, so he just keeps talking.
Yeah, and yeah. I'm trying to formulate my own thought on this. Like, I have this idea that, just a consistent beating over the head. He keeps coming back to these ideas that anybody who doesn't agree with his ideology can't be deemed credible, regardless of whether or not they're an academic.
Yeah, that's again, like to me, he's just trying to get her to side with him, and it's not happening.
Yeah, and just the idea that if it's coming from a fellow academic, that's when you should probably listen more. You don't have to agree with him at the end of the day, right? But just to dismiss it out of hand, you can tell this guy hasn't read any of his shit. You can tell he hasn't read Jordan Peterson.
He's just going along with the hype. This guy's with the alt-right, blah, 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 like shit like that.
And the thing of it is that if he had listened to anything that Jordan Peterson had said, without his preconceived bullshit notions, I guess the better way to say it was that if he didn't come in with his own paradigm of what he's or his presuppositions on what he's going to hear, he might, get something out of it and say, okay, you know what? I don't agree with everything he says, but he's definitely not alt-right. He's not a white supremacist. He isn't targeting trannies or whatever. He's not doing any of that. You and I know that because we've seen enough of his stuff to understand that this isn't the way that man thinks. It's disgusting. Okay, so we have an hour, 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I think you want to power through on this?
Let's keep going.
All right, let's go.
And I don't feel we're doing our job as an institution. Simply.
Yeah, but that's not why you're not doing your job as an institution.
Because we're presenting both sides. And again, I'll use the analogy of climate change. I mean.
Why? What she had to talk about had nothing to do with climate change. Jesus Christ. Just stick. Can we stick with what was?
The fossil fuel industry itself knew this in the 1970s. It's like the tobacco companies with lung cancer. As early as the late 1920s, they had a really strong idea that this was happening. Further and further research showed that. I would find it problematic given the degree of advertising and power that the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, the big tobacco lobby, big pharma, etc., have.
How did we jump to big tobacco?
Again, it's all about conflation.
But it's like he's beyond illogical now. Like anybody, even in a lay person audience, would be looking at this guy and going, "How the fuck do you still have a job?"
Yeah, because no, they can't stick to the argument of these pronoun things. You know, they can't continue on with that one because, again, they don't have a legitimate argument behind that. They don't have a legitimate argument to even have her in that fucking room. So they have to conflate to things that have absolutely nothing to do with why she's there, so they can make an argument as to why she's there.
That you've studied at SFU, that you're part of the learning process for students, to just reinforce the kind of prejudices that students bring to class. That to me is something, yes, we need to challenge them, and we need to challenge them, and I challenge them with ideas that I don't even necessarily believe.
Okay, so I think we both can agree that every student that goes into a classroom, and just about every other person in the world except for, maybe young children, have prejudices of their own. And but the assumption that these students are going into these classrooms with racial prejudices is shitty of him. Because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he's doing. He's assuming that a lot of these kids have their own prejudices, whether they be transphobic or racist, so on and so forth. Why assume that anybody has these types of prejudices?
Even in 203, but because they're substantiated and my colleagues require me to teach them to prepare students better for third and fourth year, I'm happy to teach those things. I know I hope it'll make every student, but maybe some, rethink what they think. If they come around to believe, they can believe what they can say what they believe, right? Everyone's entitled to their opinions. But we have a duty as educators, as scholars, as academics, even as public intellectuals, to make sure that we're not furthering the kind of, I would call it charlatanism. I think Jordan Peterson, and I know you're not a fan, but I think he actually shows a form of charlatanism when it comes to the academy. And he's playing this whole idea about free speech and a public debate, which is not substantiated by the fact that he has nothing really that is credible.
Did he just say that his arguments for free speech are not substantiated?
Pretty much.
What?
I think what he's trying to say is that his arguments against certain things about free speech are unsubstantiated. Like probably going back to the claim that he said Jordan Peterson stated about how people are going to be thrown into jail if they don't observe certain trans pronouns.
Hasn't it already happened? Hasn't somebody been accused of doing that crap already?
That I don't know. I can look into it.
I could have swore I read a thing where they talked about that.
Possible. I'll look into it here.
Reading his stuff on pronouns, and for me, that's where I find people like Jordan Peterson problematic. Is because I don't find anything credible in his academic research to be there. I mean, there are other people who teach grammar that could be drawn upon to perhaps challenge this idea of using they around the notion of when you use it. But again, I would say that's, it strikes me as a little bit different bringing in a debate on a YouTube video about something when we're teaching grammar and talking about the pronouns.
This kind of brings me back to the next point, which was kind of thinking about how to move forward. Because I can see why you made that choice. Like the topic was grammar, but your role as TA is not really to be teaching about the politics of grammar. It's to be teaching grammar, to be teaching punctuation, to be kind of to be going through these things, like to with.
So at the collegiate level, her only job, and this probably speaks true of the college professor as well, their only job is grammatical mechanics.
Yeah, but how are you supposed to teach that? Like, okay, so for instance, they're talking about grammar of
politics.
Sex-based grammar, right?
Okay.
He, she, zers. I mean, that's what I heard anyway. So if that is the case, if that's what they're teaching, how can they learn about it without knowing that it is essentially, how can I put this? That it is controversial at best.
Yeah.
It's like me teaching, like we're in Nazi Germany and I'm teaching that Jews are dirty, nasty people, right?
Okay.
And then somebody's saying, but here's the opinion of a person who says they're not dirty, nasty people. And even though, the zeitgeist is that they are dirty, nasty people, I'm going to let you watch this anyway, and then I get in trouble for it. I mean, I could see that happening in Nazi Germany, but they're treating it the same way when we're talking about modern time university education, which is insanity.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem I have with this idea about you're supposed to be teaching about punctuation and grammar usage. Those are things that you are supposed to be learning in freshman English. That fall semester, though, you're also learning how to formulate opinion. Because if it's anything like it is in college, in American university, they prep you for that, because the second semester you're in English 102 or whatever number level it is for that college. That's when you start formulating rhetorical ideas, to debate an idea that you have, right? So they should be taught these things to get them prepared for what they have to do next semester. To show an example of a rhetorical debate would give them an idea of what's going to be expected of them. I don't see what the fucking problem is, other than they have a problem with Jordan Peterson.
To add clarification or discussion in relation to the lecture material, but not to be bringing original content around side issues. Does that make sense? Like, has this been your kind of structure throughout, was to bring in more like theoretical aspects around like things like spelling, punctuation, like the other topics, like how to write a thesis statement? Or was it just like this one class?
It was just this class. I just wanted them to see how they interact with grammar on an everyday, like in everyday life.
Okay.
That was the way that I framed it. Okay. And I remembered my slide. It said like issues in grammar. Okay. And then we talked about English having gendered pronouns, and like it engaged them, like, and people were of all opinion. So.
Okay. Would you be comfortable for the rest of the term to just kind of stick more to a more kind of traditional syllabus of teaching the issues around grammar, but just like the particular like sentence structure, whatever the topics are that we have left?
So he's literally telling her just to teach the mechanics.
I mean, I can't repress my personality, but. I mean, I don't see where the occasion would arise for me to bring in another controversial topic.
Okay. So just kind of thinking forward, just because of what seems to have been like a little bit of a breakdown in communication, just about like what the requirements of the class are. Do you write out your lesson plans, or do you do slides?
I write them out.
Okay. Yeah. Could you send me your lesson plans before?
Oh my God, he wants to approve her lesson plans.
Yep, I remember this from the previews I've gotten.
I can kind of have a quick look over them.
I write them like on paper with pen, but I can take a picture.
Okay. Yeah.
But sometimes I don't decide until because we get out of the lecture at 5:50. I have till 8 p.m. to decide what I'm going to do based on what you've done.
Okay.
So I mean, I can send it to you literally 2 minutes before I start, maybe.
Okay. Well.
Oh, did you catch that?
Yeah, she's going to send it to him 2 minutes before she starts.
No. Listen again. There was something else to that.
I can send it to you literally 2 minutes before I start, maybe.
Okay. Well.
Because we get out of the lecture at 5:50. I have till 8 p.m. to decide what I'm going to do based on what you've done.
Okay.
So.
Did you catch that?
Based on what you've done?
Uh-huh. I think her professor is in there with her.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So, I mean, I can send it to you literally 2 minutes before I start, maybe.
Okay. Well, if you can plan, like what we're doing in lecture should be maybe 15 minutes tops of the tutorial. The tutorial should focus on the skill building. So I'm assuming that most of that was planned out more in advance. Like if you have a lesson on sentence structure or something.
Today I got them to email me their grammar questions. I'm just going to answer them.
Okay. All right. But going forward, if you can maybe try to plan a little further ahead, and then maybe being like, and then I'm going to talk about the lecture, that's fine. But send those to me in advance just so I can have a take a look at them. And if you have any PowerPoint slides, etc. I'll ask you not to play any more Jordan Peterson videos or anything of the like. If you did have something that you wanted to play in class, to kind of let me know ahead of time what it is, so I can take a look. And then I'll also talk everything over with my colleagues and with Peter, who's the chair of the undergraduate department. And then we'll talk about how to move forward from this. Does that make sense?
Sorry, that's a little bit vague. Could you specify what you mean by moving forward? That's really general.
Okay. Well, we're going to have.
I think she's got a pretty good handle on grammar.
To talk about what you said, and then hopefully everything can continue and we can continue to have the working relationship that we do. But it's something I have to talk over with my colleagues because, frankly, some of the things that we talked about are a little bit problematic, and we need to process them.
Okay. Do you know when you'll have an answer by?
I do not.
Okay, but basically you're telling me the alternative to me not continuing my TA-ship is it would somehow be terminated? And I'm not sure what the grounds for that would be.
That's not something that is in my control. I'm not your employer. I'm your supervisor. So I have to actually transmit my information I have to talk about it with Herbert. I have to talk about it with Peter, who's the chair. I don't know. If I knew what the entire process is, then I would let you know.
What is the process? What committee is this going to? I kind of need to know where information about me is circulating,
okay.
And I don't know.
I don't know either. Herbert,
I would only assume that it would be with Peter.
Because you said you have to talk it over with your colleagues, so I don't know.
Well,
my colleagues, Herbert, Adria, and Peter.
And Peter's the chair of the department. I don't have any say over your TA-ship in any respect in that sense. But
you're right. That is your professor.
Yeah.
What we discussed here, and discuss that with Peter.
Right now, I would say that this is an informal process. If it got brought to a formal process, which would be somebody makes a formal complaint and wants to go forward with that, then that would look a little bit different, I would say. And then that would be based on either the gender violence policy or the harassment and discrimination policy, and would go through those policies and procedures, which are online and available to you to look at what that would look like. Hopefully it can be resolved informally. But
that's my hope too.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what Nathan was getting at by moving forward, by his phrase, moving forward, that this is an informal process. I mean, it's the first time I've been involved in this process in 16 years. And so I don't even necessarily know what the process is. But part of the reason why I wanted to hear your story is a complaint or complaints were made. Have to hear, because, you know, there's two sides, right? You need to know.
There's two sides.
And so we needed to know what happened from your perspective. Right?
Sure.
So if you can send me your lesson plans, and I might need to, after talking it over with Peter, I might need to sit in on some of your tutorials, just to kind of assess the space and see.
Make sure you're towing our line.
Yeah, this guy is just off his rocker, man.
How things are going, moving forward. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming in, Lindsay. Way back.
And that is it.
So I have a question. What happened to this lady?
Well, let me pull up the first article here. I have to put it over into the OBS feed. Okay, so Laurier, professor and president, apologized to TA over video sanction. The conversation I heard does not reflect the values and practices to which Laurier aspires. So the president of Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario, has apologized for how faculty handled complaints, probably theirs, made against teaching assistant Lindsay Shepard after she showed a controversial video in a communications tutorial class. Not even a fucking English class? Communication class? Jesus. Anyway, Laurier President and Vice Chancellor Deborah McClatchy apologized to Shepard on Tuesday after media outlets carried the full audio of a conversation between her supervising professor, Dr. Nathan Rambukkana, as well as another professor, Herbert Pimlott, and the manager of Gender Violence Prevention and Support, Adria Joel. That's the woman who hardly ever got to speak above the two men.
Well, I have to say, being forced to sit through an ordeal like that, and all I get back is an apology, I don't know, I'd be okay with it.
Okay, so here's the letter itself. I'm writing to make an apology on behalf of the university. Through the media, we have now had the opportunity to hear the full recording of the meeting that took place at Wilfrid Laurier University. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. After listening to this recording, an apology is in order. The conversation I heard does not reflect the values and practices to which Laurier aspires. I am sorry it occurred in the way that it did, and I regret the impact it had on Lindsay Shepard. So she's not even directly apologizing to Shepard. At least not in this, anyway. I will convey my apology to her directly. Okay. Professor Rambukkana has also chosen to apologize to Lindsay Shepard about the way the meeting was conducted. I remain troubled by the way faculty, staff, and students involved in this situation have been targeted with extreme vitriol. Supports are in place at the university to support them through this situation. The university has engaged an independent party to assess the facts of the matter, including a review of related processes going forward. To which Lindsay would respond, "What does going forward mean?" The review is intended to support improvement in our processes. The university is committed to ensuring that the vitally important role of teaching assistant supports an enriched learning environment for all students. Let me be clear by stating that Laurier is committed to the abiding principles of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Giving life to these principles while respecting fundamentally important human rights and our institutional values of diversity and inclusion is not a simple matter. The intense media interest points to a highly polarizing and very complicated set of issues that is affecting universities across the democratic world. The polarizing nature of the current debate does not do justice to the complexity of issues. Laurier is prepared to engage with these important discussions in a thoughtful and determined way. I have announced a task force to delve into these issues. Further details will be announced in the days ahead. I look forward to the process.
I swear to you, it's like one guy, and it's not his top priority.
Probably not. Anyway. So, Jordan Peterson actually tweeted an article by one of the guys who was in that room, Herbert Pimlott.
That must have been the effeminate man talking.
They both were effeminate talking men.
Well, the one who was mostly talking, I'm thinking. Because the professor was that Ugabuyu guy, right?
Rambukana. That's her supervising
Right.
professor. That was the girly one. Or I'm sorry, the effeminate one. But the other one has an article printed that was posted in the Canadian Journal of Communication titled "Engaging Class Struggles: Preparing Students for the Real World by Teaching Activist Cultural Production in the Classroom." Irony, maybe?
Big time.
Yeah. So, hey, they have it in French and in English. So here's the abstract paragraph. In this self-reflective essay, the author, that's great. The author argues that communication studies offers opportunities for integrating activism with classroom content that is useful for teaching both academic knowledge and practical skills. You mean to tell me exactly what this TA was doing? Only from a less activist perspective? While actively engaging students in subject matter that is of direct interest. Despite the deterioration of faculty working and student learning conditions, he argues that there is space for activist scholars to draw from the commitments and engage in forms of critical pedagogy, which she argued that she did, that also meets student desires for professional skills. Jury is out as to whether or not that is what she actually did. After offering an overview of his own teaching philosophy and background, he provides examples of content assignments and readings to illustrate how both critical thinking and writing skills are taught in student disengagement overcome.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what you did. Yeah, Jesse, if you're still there, that was very hard to listen to. Mostly because, and I don't consider myself to be the least bit beta, but it was hard to listen to because basically what we witnessed were two men that have some power in academia beating a teaching assistant over the head over fields and non-logical excuses. I mean, just bullshit all the way around.
Like there was parts in there she was legitimately crying. Now I don't know that she should have been crying, but she definitely felt like she was either losing her job or close to that. I think she was more comfortable at the end. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it went that far over a video in what amounts to as a glorified English lesson, to me is bordering on ridiculous. And I hope that guy gets fucking fired.
Both of them.
Yeah, I'd be down with that too.
I wouldn't say I would want the woman to get fired. She was there. I'm sure she was there upon request. But man, it's just ridiculous. They didn't seem too overly concerned about the way she was feeling. They were more, you know why? Because she's a cis, probably straight female. She's not very high up on the progressive stack. She's on it, just not very high up. Oh, video output low. Well, whatever. So, that is the recording. Sav, do you have any closing thoughts?
Closing remarks. Liberals are bad. Stay away from them.
Stay away from their ideology. I think with that, what I'll say is that this is further evidence that having freedom in academia is becoming something of an endangered species.
The funny part is that like liberals were championing this stuff way back in the day. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Like this was their bread and butter. It was all free speech, a marketplace of ideas.
Well,
now it's like, oh no, we can't have that. It's it's our turn.
Well, the thing of it is that these guys would probably call themselves liberals, but they are not liberals in the classic sense. These guys are regressives, and it's just they figure freedom of speech has seen its day. It's time to move on and get back to more Marxist collectivist ideas, so that everybody can feel equal these days, because that's what's more important.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, we say insane, but that's kind of dismissive of what's actually going on. There's an entire subculture dedicated to essentially, I want to say, brainwash youth.
Oh, yeah. And not just that. I mean, they're infantilizing the youth too. Now, granted, there are some 18, 19-year-olds that go to college and don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. Then there are college students that do know their ass from a hole in the ground because their head is frequenting one place or the other. And then there are those who actually know what the hell is going on in the world around them. And this one, I believe, Lindsay Shepherd knows what's going on around her. And, by her own words, I have no reason to not believe that she disagrees with Jordan Peterson on a number, if not all, issues. But she felt it was important to get to let these students, her students, know that there are these ideas out there. But because management didn't like the ideas being perpetrated, regardless of how she felt about those ideas, they just said, we're going to shut this down altogether. So yeah, I think that freedom of ideas and expression are very much endangered in Western academia now, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't see this going on much longer in terms of, the liberal chokehold on education, because more and more people, and I don't want to bring up like other YouTubers' names, but I see them more often than not now, is like Sargon of Akkad and V. Monroe. I mean, you name it, they're basically coming out against all this, social justice crap. But it seems like the social justice crowd is doubling down. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, oh no, we're right. We're going to keep pushing this agenda.
Yeah. And, I guess, and I don't necessarily disagree that those people like Sargon, the Warskis, Hard Bastard, he's more of a news disseminator, but this is a guy who, and I think I've told you about him a couple of times. I don't know if you've seen anything he does yet. he called himself, you know, a liberal back in the day, but you know, as the campaign went on this last election cycle, he went and voted for Trump because, you know, he understood how corrupt Hillary is. So this, they've got good ideas as far as to fight this. And Devin Tracy's another one. The only problem I have with him is his stance on guns. So you're familiar with him, aren't you? Atheism is Unstoppable. Yeah, there, Soph. Did I lose you?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
All right, you familiar with that guy?
I am familiar with him. Yes.
Yeah, he's very anti-Second Amendment. So
yes, you know, no matter how intelligent people claim to be, they're usually wrong on one thing or another.
Yeah, definitely. So, but anyway, Jesse says he's glad that you got to hear this recording, and I'm glad you got to show me this. I've known there were some things like this going on campuses, but this is a little bit sickening. I guess to his stomach. I think he ran out of characters.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for this one. Jesse, thanks for hanging in for the long haul. I appreciate you being here.
It wasn't a very terribly exciting recording. Usually you got stuff with more spunk in it.
Well, that's because usually we have recordings of greater dumbasses. I think the other live stream or two that we've done has been basically breaking down the Young Turks bullshit. Cause that is
it was a specific fun. Pretty boy from the Young Turks. I forgot his name.
Hassan Piker. Yeah.
God, that guy's name is even pretentious.
He did you see any of Politicon?
Did I see any what?
Any of the debates from Politicon?
I did not.
I'm gonna have to give you links.
No, wait. I saw the healthcare debate between Cenk and what's his face?
Shapiro.
That's the one.
Yeah, but
dude, I hate to cut you short, but I do have to walk my dog, so I gotta go do that real fast, and we can continue.
Okay,
he's literally whining at me.
All right, I'll send you a link for the other debate because it was Hassan, who happens to be Cenk's nephew.
I like that name, Cenk. I'm gonna start calling him that from now on.
That's his name.
It's actually Cenk.
It's Cenk. I swear that's how they pronounce it now, but it's neither here nor there. I prefer Stank myself, but whatever.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
All right. Well, thanks so much for hanging out. I know it was an exciting one, but I do appreciate your input into it. And for anybody who came by to the feed, thanks for hanging out. And hopefully we'll catch you
later, man.
Take care.